I'm Catherine Hayes, 47 years old, and for 29 years, I commanded thousands of sailors across the Pacific as a Rear Admiral in the United States Navy. But at my sister's engagement party, my mother introduced me to her fiancé, a Navy SEAL captain, as my disappointing daughter, the one who never gave me grandchildren. When he saluted me in front of everyone, my mother's face went white. But that wasn't the moment that changed everything. 6 months later, at the reading of my grandmother's will, the woman they told me I was too busy to care about, the attorney announced, the entire estate of $4.7 million and the Oregon beachfront villa goes to my granddaughter, Catherine Hayes, the only one who understood what it means to serve. That was the moment that changed everything. Have you ever been so underestimated that people forgot your silence wasn't weakness? It was strategy? The email arrived through official Navy channels first, a formal notification that my leave request had been approved for family event. Then my mother called, not to ask if I could make it, but to issue instructions. Her voice carried that particular edge I'd learned to recognize over decades. Make sure you dress appropriately, Catherine. Don't wear that uniform this time. We don't want another scene. I stood in my office overlooking Pearl Harbor, where 3 destroyers sat in formation, their gray hulls cutting precise lines against blue water. Outside my door, junior officers moved with purpose, salutes crisp and immediate. Inside this room, I commanded respect earned through years of difficult decisions and flawless execution. But to my mother, I was still the daughter who'd made the wrong choices. "I'll be there," I said simply. "Vanessa's so excited." Mom continued as if I hadn't spoken. "He's a real catch, Captain Marcus Shaw, a Navy SEAL, not like those desk officers you work with." I let that one pass. The truth was, I spent most of my time at sea or in strategic planning sessions that determined the movement of entire carrier groups. But to her, if you weren't kicking down doors with a rifle, you weren't really military. What's his specialty? 6 deployments, Catherine. 6. And he still makes time for family. The implication hung between us. I'd missed Vanessa's first wedding because I'd been in the Gulf managing a crisis that kept 3 ships and 4,000 sailors safe. She'd never forgiven me. Never mind that I'd sent a gift worth 3 months' salary. Never mind that I'd called from a secure line the moment I had 30 minutes of downtime. I hadn't been there. In Mom's calculus, that was the only thing that mattered. I'm looking forward to meeting him. Just try to be normal. Vanessa's been through so much with her divorces. She deserves this. After we hung up, I sat at my desk and watched the ocean. A group text notification lit up my phone, the family thread. The family. I opened it to find 47 messages about engagement party planning, venue selections, menu choices. I scrolled up. The conversation had started 3 weeks ago. No one had thought to include me until today. And even now, it was only because my father had apparently noticed my absence and added me himself. I set the phone down and returned to the report in front of me. Pacific Fleet Readiness Inspection Results. 18 ships evaluated, 12 commendations issued, 3 captains who needed additional oversight. Precise, clear, consequential work. The kind that kept sailors alive and missions successful. My phone buzzed again. Vanessa, in a private message, "Mom said you're coming. Please don't make this about you. This is my day." I read it twice, trying to decode what she meant. Then I understood. She was asking me not to mention my career, not to correct anyone's assumptions, to play small so she could feel big. I typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on, "Congratulations, I'm happy for you." She sent back a heart emoji, nothing else. Commander Jules Chen knocked and entered, my aide and the closest thing to a friend the chain of command allowed. "Ma'am, the briefing's ready when you are." I stood, smoothed my uniform, followed her to the conference room. The next 2 hours were spent discussing logistics for an upcoming joint operation with Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Forces. I barely thought about the engagement dinner. But that evening, alone in my quarters, I pulled out the dress whites I'd need. I pressed them myself despite having access to services that could have done it. There was something meditative about the process. The heat of the iron, the sharp creases forming under pressure, The transformation of rumpled fabric into something crisp and professional. Jules had joked earlier after I mentioned the family dinner. Ma'am, that's what reunions are for, to remind them who you really are. I hadn't laughed, because the truth was I'd been reminding them for years. Every promotion, every commendation, every article in the Navy Times. It never seemed to matter. They'd built a story about me, the career spinster who'd chosen ambition over family. And they were committed to it regardless of evidence. The night before I flew out, Jules and I had dinner at the only Thai restaurant near base that delivered after 2,200 hours. You seem tense, she observed over mediocre pad thai. Family thing. She nodded. She'd met her share of families who didn't understand what we did. My sister's marrying a SEAL captain. My mother thinks he's more military than I am. Jules nearly choked. You're joking. I wish. Sonia, Catherine, you coordinate operations across 7 time zones. You've got 4,000 sailors under your command. You brief senators. She shook her head. What does she think you do all day? Paperwork, apparently. Are you going to tell them? I considered it. Walking into that country club and announcing my rank felt both satisfying and exhausting. I'm going to show up and be respectful. What they do with that is up to them. Jules studied me. That's very diplomatic. I'm tired of fighting for space in my own family. Then why go at all? Fair question. I'd asked it myself a dozen times while packing. Because they're still my family. My mother raised me. Vanessa was my best friend once, before diverging paths carved a canyon between us. I keep showing up because some part of me still hopes that one day they'll see me clearly. Jules raised her beer. To family. May they eventually get a clue. I clinked my glass against hers. The flight to Florida was smooth. I spent it reviewing personnel files, trying not to think about the dinner. When I landed, I rented a car and drove straight to the country club, dress whites hanging in the back seat. The parking lot was full of expensive cars. I found a spot in the back, away from the entrance, and sat for a moment in silence. Through the windows, I could see people gathering. Vanessa's friends, Mom's social circle, men in suits and women in cocktail dresses, and somewhere inside, Captain Marcus Shaw, who my mother thought represented real military service. I checked my ribbons one final time, 15 of them, each representing campaigns, commendations, years of service. The Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal, the Joint Service Achievement Medal, the ribbon for Operation Enduring Freedom. My cover sat positioned correctly. The single silver star on my shoulder boards caught the parking lot lights. It was time to remind them who I really was, whether they were ready to see it or not. The country club smelled like expensive perfume and fresh flowers. I walked through the entrance alone, heels clicking against marble floors that probably cost more than my annual salary. A hostess with a practiced smile directed me toward the private dining room. I could hear them before I saw them. Laughter, the clink of glasses, my mother's voice rising above the others with that theatrical quality she reserved for audiences. When I entered, the conversation didn't stop. No one turned. I stood in the doorway for a moment, taking it in. Round tables covered in white linens, centerpieces of roses and hydrangeas. At the head table, Vanessa in a pale blue dress that matched her eyes, looking radiant and confident. Mom saw me first. Her smile hardened. Oh, you actually came. Loud enough that several people turned. Everyone, this is my disappointing daughter. The words landed like a slap, but I kept my expression neutral. Reaction was what she wanted. Some visible wound she could either ignore or apologize for, depending on her mood and audience. Laughter rippled through the room. Not cruel exactly. More like the nervous sound people make when someone says something uncomfortable and they're not sure how to respond. Vanessa looked down at her plate. Not embarrassed for me, I realized. Embarrassed. Of me. Mom continued, emboldened. This is the one who never gave me grandchildren. Too busy playing sailor. More laughter, lighter this time. I walked toward the head table, stride measured and calm, professional, the way I'd walk onto a bridge during a crisis. Vanessa stood, came around the table. Her hug was brief and stiff. I'm so glad you could make it. The words were right. The tone suggested otherwise. Congratulations, I'm happy for you. This is Captain Marcus Shaw. Mom gestured to the man beside Vanessa. Real military, not office military like you. He stood, and I got my first clear look at him. Tall, fit, probably early 40s. The kind of weathered handsomeness that came from years of outdoor operations. His eyes were sharp, assessing. He extended his hand. Ma'am. His grip was firm but not aggressive. His gaze traveled over my uniform, lingering on my ribbons. I watched his expression, polite disinterest, the kind of look senior officers gave to junior personnel at mandatory social functions. He was being courteous. Nothing more. Then his eyes caught on my shoulder boards, the silver star. I watched the moment of recognition hit him. His eyes widened. Color drained from his face. He released my hand and took a step back, his body responding before his mind had fully processed what he was seeing. His heels came together sharply. His right hand snapped up in a salute so crisp it could have been used in a training video. Admiral Hayes, ma'am. I apologize, ma'am. I didn't recognize you out of context. The laughter died mid-breath. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Someone's wine glass made a small clink as it was set down too hard. I returned the salute slowly, holding eye contact. At ease, Captain. He dropped his hand but didn't relax. His face had gone from confident to mortified in 3 seconds. Behind him, I could see his SEAL teammates, 3 other men in suits, all staring at me with wide eyes. My mother's mouth had fallen open. She looked from me to Marcus and back, trying to reconcile what she'd just witnessed with the narrative she'd built. She outranks you? Someone whispered from a nearby table. Marcus didn't answer. He pulled out the chair beside Vanessa. Please, ma'am, sit. Thank you, Captain. I sat, placing my cover on the table beside my plate. The silence stretched. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, the recalculation happening in real time. Vanessa's face had gone pale. Mom looked like she'd been struck. One of Marcus's teammates leaned forward, Lieutenant Jake Morrison, based on the insignia I could make out on his civilian jacket. Admiral Hayes, Pacific Fleet, Strike Group 7? Correct. Holy... He caught himself. I mean, excuse me, ma'am. We studied one of your operations at Coronado, the Strait of Hormuz passage last year. That was a team effort, good sailors, good planning. That was brilliant, ma'am. You got 4 ships through contested waters with 0 incidents. The briefings required reading now. Marcus had recovered slightly. He sat beside Vanessa, who still hadn't said anything. Ma'am, I apologize again. Your mother said... He stopped himself, realizing the trap he was walking into. It's fine, Captain. It happens. But it wasn't fine, and everyone at that table knew it. Mom finally found her voice. You never told us you were an admiral. I looked at her directly. I've been a rear admiral for 18 months. It was in the Navy Times. I sent you the article. I thought that was a different Catherine Hayes. It wasn't. Vanessa reached for her wine glass, hand shaking slightly. Marcus put his hand over hers, steadying it, but he was staring at me with something between awe and horror. How long have you been in? One of the other SEALs asked. 29 years. Academy? Yes. What's your specialty? Surface warfare, strategic operations. The questions continued. I answered them simply, without elaboration. But each answer was another nail in the coffin of my mother's narrative. Each response revealed the gap between who she'd decided I was and who I actually was. Dinner was served, but no one was really eating. The conversation had fractured into small pockets of whispered discussion. I caught fragments. I didn't know. She never said. How did we not know? My mother was silent now, pushing food around her plate. Vanessa kept looking at me like I was a stranger. Marcus, to his credit, tried to salvage the evening. Ma'am, if you're comfortable discussing it, what's your command like? Busy. We're responsible for a fairly large operational area. Keeps everyone sharp. I bet. He paused. I do it to avoid. I served under Admiral Richardson 2 years ago. Do you know him? We've worked together. Good officer. He spoke highly of you, actually. I didn't make the connection until now. Another nail. By the time dessert arrived, the atmosphere had shifted completely. People were asking me questions, showing respect, treating me like someone important. My mother sat at the head of the table. diminished. Her power in the space suddenly revealed as the shallow thing it had always been. I didn't gloat. I didn't make pointed comments or enjoy her discomfort. I just existed, fully visible for the first time in their presence. When I excused myself to leave early, not rudely so, but firmly, Marcus stood immediately. "Ma'am, it was an honor. Truly." "Congratulations on your engagement, Captain. Take care of my sister." "I will, ma'am." I hugged Vanessa briefly. She whispered, "Why didn't you tell us?" "I tried. You didn't listen." I walked out of that country club with my head high and shoulders straight. The humid air hit me like a wall, but I didn't care. I drove back to base housing, let myself into the small apartment the Navy provided, and sat in the dark for a long time. I didn't feel triumphant, just tired. Tired of being underestimated. Tired of fighting for respect in spaces where it should have been freely given. Tired of being the punchline to my mother's jokes. But also, for the first time in years, I felt something else. Clarity. The mask had fallen away. They'd seen me, really seen me, and now I had to decide what to do with that. Vanessa and I grew up in Pensacola, where the Navy was less a career path and more a fact of life. Aircraft noise punctuated every outdoor conversation. Housing units stretched in identical rows, each occupied by a family that understood deployment cycles and the particular anxiety of waiting for a ship to return. Dad was Master Chief William Hayes, E-9, the backbone of the Navy. He worked on aircraft engines, came home with grease under his fingernails, spoke about the service with quiet pride. He never pushed us toward military life, but he never discouraged it either. He just showed us what it looked like to serve with dignity. Mom had different aspirations. Eleanor Vanderbilt Hayes, she kept her maiden name in the middle, a small rebellion against the choice that had cost her everything, wanted daughters who would marry well, have children, host dinner parties. She'd grown up in Charleston wealth, the kind with family portraits and debutante balls. The Navy had given her stability when she'd married a master chief against her family's wishes, but she viewed it as a cage she'd locked herself into, not a calling. Vanessa was born beautiful. That's not subjective. Even as a child, people stopped Mom in grocery stores to comment on her features. By high school, she'd learned to weaponize it, dated the quarterback, got elected homecoming queen, filled photo albums with images of herself surrounded by friends. I was born curious. I took apart radios to understand how they worked, read Dad's technical manuals for entertainment. In middle school, I started attending Navy events with him, change of command ceremonies, retirement parties. I liked the order of it, the way everyone knew their place and purpose. When I told Mom I wanted to go to the Naval Academy, she laughed. Not cruelly, but dismissively. "Honey, you don't have to do that. You're smart. You could marry someone successful." "I want my own success. That's not how the world works for women." But I applied anyway. Dad helped with the physical fitness requirements, running beside me at 0500 before school. He didn't say much, but his presence was support enough. I got in. Top test scores, strong recommendations, a congressional nomination from Senator Graham, who'd served with Dad years before. When the acceptance letter arrived, Dad put it on the refrigerator. Mom took it down the next day. Said it made the kitchen look cluttered. Vanessa went to cosmetology school. She was good at it, had a talent for making people feel beautiful. She opened her own salon at 22, married a real estate developer at 23. The wedding was enormous, expensive, exactly what Mom had always wanted. I missed it because I was deployed in the Gulf. A crisis had erupted, details still classified, and I was executive officer on a destroyer responsible for 1,200 sailors and weapon systems worth billions. I tried to explain. The mission was critical. I couldn't get leave. My absence wasn't personal, but to Vanessa, it was the ultimate betrayal. Her sister hadn't shown up for the most important day of her life. The marriage lasted 3 years. When it ended, I flew home on emergency leave. Vanessa was devastated, crying in Mom's kitchen about how she'd wasted her youth. I sat with her, brought tissues, listened to every detail. "At least you were there for this," she said. "Of course, you're my sister." "You're never there." It stung because it was partially true. I missed birthdays, holidays, ordinary Tuesdays, but I was building something, a career that mattered, a life of purpose. Through my 20s and 30s, I became the family ATM. The receipts told their own story, which I kept in a folder I'd labeled family support, but should have called evidence. 2003, Vanessa's first divorce, 18,000 for attorney fees, 7,200 for 6 months rent, 3,500 for therapy she attended twice before deciding she was fine. Total, $28,700. Her thank you text. Must be nice to have all that disposable income. 2007, mom's car breakdown, 8,900 for a new engine she could have replaced for less if she hadn't insisted on the BMW staying original. Her response, you should have just bought me a new car, but I know you're busy. 2009, dad's colon cancer surgery, 15,600 in copays, 22,000 in treatment costs. The Navy's insurance didn't cover. Total 37,600. I flew home 4 times during his treatment, sleeping in hospital chairs, holding his hand through the worst of it. Mom told the nurses, my daughter with the salon has been here the whole time. Catherine, she's busy with work. 2012, Vanessa's salon renovation, 25,000 as a silent partner investment. The salon grossed 180,000 annually after that. My cut? 0. Vanessa's explanation when I finally asked, you don't need the money. 2015, mom's kitchen remodel, 32,000 for granite counters, custom cabinets, Viking appliances. At the party to show it off, mom told her friends, my successful daughter, Vanessa, with her salon, helped me design this. I was standing in the corner of that kitchen. No one introduced me. 2018, Vanessa's second divorce from the dentist. 12,000 in legal fees, 8,000 in restart money. Total 20,000. Between 2020 and 2024, 6,500 for mom's roof, 4,200 for furniture, 11,000 for Vanessa's emergencies, she never explained. Total over 20 years, $173,900. Not one thank you that didn't come with a barb. Not one acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, I was doing something worthwhile with my life beyond funding theirs. But I'd kept every receipt, every bank transfer confirmation, every text message. Not because I planned to use them, just because some part of me knew that one day, the truth would matter. That night in the base apartment after the engagement party, I couldn't sleep. I opened my laptop and went through my sent email folder, searching for every message I'd sent home over the years. The list was devastating in its consistency. 2,000 graduation from the academy, ranked 15th out of 1,000. Mom, I'm being assigned to USS Nimitz. First deployment starts in 3 weeks. No response. 2003, Navy Times article about my role in the Gulf. Attached is the piece they wrote about our operations. Pretty cool. Mom replied, nice. One word. 2007, promotion to lieutenant commander at 32. I made 04. Ceremony is Saturday if you and Vanessa want to come. Mom, Vanessa has a salon expo. Maybe next time. There was no next time. She never asked. 2012, my first command of a destroyer. I'm taking over USS Porter, first woman in my class to get a destroyer command. Vanessa, cool. 2016, promotion to captain. Made 06, the promotion ceremony will have the Secretary of the Navy attending. Mom, can't make it, hair appointment, send photos. I sent photos. She never acknowledged them. 2019, the Somalia hostage rescue that made CNN. In case you see the news, I'm fine. Can't talk about details yet, but everyone's safe. No response at all. 2023, assignment to Strike Group 7. Just got orders. I'm taking command of Strike Group 7. 4 ships, 4,000 sailors. Mom, that's great, honey. Did you hear Vanessa opened her second salon location? 73 emails sent over 29 years. Total meaningful responses, 0. But I also found something else. An email chain I'd been copied on by accident, sent from mom's account to her sister in 2018. Catherine's sending money again for Vanessa's legal bills. I don't know why she thinks we care about her promotions and ship assignments. No husband, no children, just boats and uniforms. It's sad, really. At least Vanessa knows what family means. I printed that email, put it in the folder with the receipts. Evidence, not for revenge, just for the day I'd need to remember that this wasn't in my head, that their dismissal was real, documented, deliberate. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. You made Mom look bad tonight. Couldn't you just act normal, like you always do? This is my time, Catherine. I read it 5 times. Act normal. Pretend to be small. Accept the insult with grace. Be the punchline so Mom could have her moment. That's what I'd been doing for 29 years. I typed out 3 different responses, each angrier than the last. Then I deleted them all and wrote, I was myself tonight. If that made Mom uncomfortable, that's not my problem to fix anymore. I didn't send it, just stared at the words on my screen until they blurred. Then I deleted that too and wrote nothing at all. Silence is not absence. Silence is choice. And that night, I chose my silence. I deleted the family group chat from my phone, not in anger, not in revenge, just acceptance. Some doors close because we slam them. Others close because we finally, quietly, stop holding them open. The next morning, I composed an email. It took 2 hours and 7 drafts to get the tone right. Not angry, not wounded, just clear. Mom and Vanessa, I love you both, but I need to step back from family events for a while. The dynamic isn't healthy for me, and I don't think my presence adds anything positive for you. I wish you both well. I'll be focusing on my command responsibilities. Take care, Catherine. I read it 20 times before sending it. Then I hit send and put my phone in airplane mode. When I landed back in Norfolk, I had 52 messages and 7 missed calls. I deleted them all unread, blocked the family group chat. Not in anger, in self-preservation. The difference mattered. 3 days after I sent the email, my phone rang. Unknown number, Oregon area code. I almost didn't answer. Then something made me pick up. Catherine, this is your grandmother, Margaret Hayes. I sat up straighter. Grandmother Margaret, Dad's mother, 84 years old, widow of a Navy officer who'd served 35 years before retiring to the Oregon coast. We talked maybe 3 times a year, mostly because she lived 3,000 miles away, and Mom had never encouraged the relationship. Grandma, are you okay? I'm fine, sweetheart, but I heard about what happened at the engagement party. My stomach dropped. Dad told you? He did, and I'm furious. Not with you, with Eleanor. I didn't know what to say. In my family, we didn't talk about Mom like that. We accommodated her, worked around her moods, accepted her version of reality. Catherine, I want you to know something. Your grandfather and I, he passed in 2015, you remember? We were always proud of you. Every email you sent your father, he forwarded to me. Every article, every promotion, every operation. My throat tightened. I have a whole album about you. I show it to everyone at the senior center. My granddaughter's a rear admiral in the United States Navy, I tell them. But Eleanor never told you that, did she? No. I know. Your father tried, but Eleanor's ashamed. Ashamed she gave up her wealthy life to marry a master chief. She wanted to prove her daughters could succeed the way society measures it. Salons, beautiful weddings, grandchildren. Catherine, you remind her of the choice she made, and she hates that. I press my palm against my forehead, processing this. I'm 84, Catherine. I don't know how many years I have left, but I wanted you to know you're not a failure. You're the pride of this family. After we hung up, I cried for the first time in 29 years. Not from pain, from being seen. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, someone looked at me and understood. The next few weeks passed in a blur of work. Fleet exercises, readiness evaluations, strategic planning sessions. I fell into the rhythm of command, finding comfort in problems that had solutions and people who valued competence. Jules noticed the change one evening over paperwork in my office. You seem lighter. I cut some weight. She understood without asking. 8 weeks after the engagement party, Vanessa called. I stared at her name on my screen for 3 rings before answering. Catherine. Her voice was small, uncertain. Vanessa, can we talk? I mean, really talk? We're talking now. Not like this. I mean, God, I don't know what I mean. I waited. On the other end, I could hear her breathing, gathering courage. Marcus deployed 3 weeks ago. That caught my attention. I don't know where he is. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know if he's safe. I can't even ask when I'll hear from him next. She paused, and I heard something crack in her voice. Is this what it was always like for you? Yes. And we never asked. We just made jokes about you running away. I said nothing. What was there to say? I'm sorry. She whispered it. I'm so sorry, Catherine. I didn't understand. I didn't even try to understand. The apology landed between us and I examined it carefully. Was it real? Was it just guilt? Did the distinction even matter? I appreciate you saying that. Mom's been different since the party, since the article in the Navy Times about you. She tells everyone about you now, but it's weird. Like she's trying to convince them she always knew, always supported you. It's easier to rewrite history than admit you were wrong. Were we really that bad? The question hung there. I could lie, smooth it over, make it easier for both of us. But I was done with that version of kindness. Yes, you were. She was quiet for a long moment. I don't know how to fix it. I'm not sure it can be fixed, Vanessa. Not quickly. Maybe not at all. But we're sisters. That's biology, not relationship. Those are different things. I heard her breath catch like she might cry. Part of me wanted to comfort her, fall back into old patterns. But a larger part, the part built over 3 decades of service, stayed firm. I have to go. I have a brief in 10 minutes. Okay. She sounded defeated. Catherine? Yeah? For what it's worth, I'm really proud of you. I should have said that years ago. Thank you. After we hung up, I sat in my office and stared at the harbor. A destroyer was pulling out, its wake cutting white lines through blue water. Sailors lined the rails in formation, the ship's bell ringing departure notes that carried across the water. I'd been that sailor once, young, eager, standing at attention while the world expanded beyond the horizon. Now I sent those sailors out. Now I made the decisions that determined where they went and what they did. The responsibility was immense, but so was the trust. These people, 4,000 sailors across my strike group, counted on me to make good calls, to be clear-headed and decisive, to put mission and safety above ego or emotion. I couldn't do that if I was constantly fighting for validation from people who'd proven they wouldn't give it. So I'd stopped fighting. And in that space, I'd found something unexpected: peace. That evening, I had dinner with Ensign Elena Rodriguez, one of the junior officers in my mentorship program. She was 24, Mexican-American, brilliant with logistics, and terrified she wasn't good enough. I don't know if I belong here, ma'am. Everyone else seems so confident. They're not. They're just better at faking it. You always seem confident. That's practice and rank. The higher you go, the less you can show doubt, even when you feel it. She picked at her pad thai from the same mediocre restaurant Jules and I used. My family doesn't understand why I joined. They wanted me to be a nurse or a teacher, something safe. They said women don't belong in the military. I smiled, not with humor, but recognition. Let me tell you about my family, Elena. For 29 years, they thought I was a failure because I didn't get married, didn't have children, didn't open a hair salon like my sister. They didn't know, or didn't care, that I coordinated operations that saved 47 hostages, that I've trained 200 young officers like you, that I command 4,000 sailors protecting the Pacific. Elena's eyes widened. They called me a failure until my sister's SEAL fiancé saluted me at their engagement party. They didn't know. They didn't want to know. There's a difference. I leaned forward. Here's what I learned, Elena. People who can't see your value aren't qualified to assess it. You graduated top 8% of your class. Your division officer says you're the best ensign she's worked with. Those are facts. Your family's disappointment is opinion. Don't confuse the two. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, ma'am. I needed to hear that. You're going to be fine, Ensign. Better than fine. Watching her leave, I thought about all the young women I'd mentored over the years. The ones who doubted themselves because someone had planted that doubt. The ones who needed permission to be excellent. I couldn't fix my own family, but I could help build a different kind here. One based on mutual respect and shared purpose. One where excellence was recognized, not resented. And one where we chose each other, rather than being bound by accident of birth. A month later, the call came that I'd been half expecting and fully dreading. Dad's voice was rough, like he'd been crying. Katie girl, your grandmother passed away this morning. Heart attack. Peacefully in her sleep. I felt the floor drop out. Grandmother Margaret, the one person who'd seen me clearly, gone. I'm arranging to fly to Oregon to handle the estate. Can you get leave? I'll be there. I'll leave tonight. 3 days later, I sat in a Portland attorney's office with Dad and Uncle Michael, waiting for the reading of Grandmother's will. Joseph Hartman, the estate attorney, was a precise man in his 60s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Mrs. Hayes updated her will 6 months ago. She was very clear about her wishes. He opened the file. She's left some small bequests to veterans' charities, but the bulk of the estate, I assumed it would be split between Dad and Uncle Michael. That's how these things usually went. Not quite, Admiral Hayes. He read from the document. I, Margaret Hayes, being of sound mind, do hereby bequeath the following. To my son William Hayes, the Portland house valued at $650,000, $200,000 in cash, and all personal effects and family memorabilia. Dad nodded, expecting. To my son Michael Hayes, $200,000 in cash and continued use of the Bend vacation property. Uncle Michael smiled. To my granddaughter Catherine Hayes, Rear Admiral, United States Navy. My heart stopped. I leave the following. First, the Cannon Beach oceanfront villa, 5 bedrooms, 4,200 square feet, overlooking the Pacific. Current market value, $2.8 million. I couldn't breathe. Second, my investment portfolio consisting of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. Total value, $1.9 million. The room spun. Total bequest to Catherine Hayes, $4.7 million. Dad's hand found mine and squeezed. Mr. Hartman continued reading Grandmother's words. Catherine is the only one in this family who understood what it means to serve not for glory, but for duty. She has served her country for 29 years while her family refused to see her. But I saw Catherine. I always saw. Tears rolled down my face. The oceanfront villa is where my husband, your grandfather, Lieutenant Commander William Hayes Sr., and I retired after 35 years of service. It's a place for people who understand the meaning of commitment, sacrifice, and service. You deserve every penny of this, Catherine. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. With all my love, Grandmother Margaret. I couldn't speak, couldn't process it. Dad pulled me into his arms. I didn't know Katie. Mom never said a word. But she'd made sure I knew, made sure everyone knew. The woman I'd spoken to maybe 3 times a year had seen me more clearly than the people who raised me. And she'd proven it with $4.7 million. That evening, Dad called home. I listened from the hotel room as he broke the news to Mom and Vanessa on speakerphone. Eleanor, Vanessa, I have sad news. Margaret passed away. Mom's voice immediately concerned. Oh, no. When's the funeral? Saturday, but there's something else. She left a will. He explained it all. The house to him, the cash to Uncle Michael, and then the rest. Silence on the other end. Then, she left how much to Catherine? Mom's voice was shrill. $4.7 million and the beach house. What? But why? Vanessa's the granddaughter. Catherine never even visited. For the first time in my life, I heard Dad raise his voice at Mom. Eleanor, my wife, listen to me very carefully. My mother left her estate to the grandchild who deserved it, the one who served her country for 29 years, the one you called a failure. Mom saw what we didn't see, and she made damn sure Catherine knew that at least one person in this family saw her. But that's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? You called our daughter a disappointment in front of 80 people. You didn't attend her promotion ceremonies because you had hair appointments. This isn't about money, Eleanor. This is about someone finally rewarding Catherine for who she actually is, not who you wanted her to be. Vanessa's voice came through smaller. But, Dad, Catherine doesn't need the money. She has an admiral's salary. Dad laughed, but it was bitter. You think Grandma did this because of money? No, Vanessa. She did it to send a message. The message that Catherine deserves respect. That value isn't measured by salons or weddings. It's measured by service and sacrifice. And that message clearly hasn't reached either of you yet. He hung up. In the silence that followed, I realized something. The inheritance wasn't about wealth. It was about validation. Grandmother Margaret had spent the last years of her life watching me be diminished by my own family. And in death, she'd made sure they could never pretend it hadn't happened. $4.7 million of proof that someone saw me. Someone valued me. Someone believed I was exactly who I was supposed to be. The funeral was Saturday morning at a small church near the coast. 150 people attended, mostly Navy veterans and their spouses, people who'd served with grandfather or knew grandmother through the veterans community. I wore my dress whites with full ribbons. Dad wore his Master Chief dress blues, still perfectly maintained despite retirement. What I didn't expect, Mom and Vanessa flew in. They arrived 30 minutes before the service started. Mom wore black, her eyes swollen like she'd been crying for days. Vanessa held her hand. When Mom saw me, she stopped, didn't approach, just looked. After the service, at the reception, an elderly man approached me. Captain Robert Chen, 78, his Navy uniform still crisp despite his age. Admiral Hayes, I served with your grandfather. Bill Hayes was the finest officer I ever worked with. He always talked about his granddaughter at the academy. My throat tightened. He passed in 2015, but before he did, he told me, Catherine's going to go far. She has what Bill and I had, duty in her heart. Thank you, sir. That means everything. Your grandparents spent their last 10 years in that Cannon Beach house. They called it their reward after 35 years of service. And now it's yours. Well-deserved, Admiral. Very well-deserved. Mom was standing close enough to hear. I watched her face crumble. That evening, at Dad's Portland house, Mom knocked on my bedroom door. Can we talk? I opened it. She looked 10 years older than she had at the engagement party. We sat in silence for 2 full minutes. Finally, Mom began, her voice shaking. Catherine, I don't know where to start, but I have to say this. For 29 years, I treated you like you made the wrong choice, like your service was a failure. I called you a disappointment in front of dozens of people. I didn't come to your promotion ceremonies. I dismissed every email, every achievement, every operation. And now I realize your grandmother saw what I refused to see. I stayed silent, let her continue. Do you know why I did it? Dad told me about your family, about what you gave up. He told you part of it, not all. She took a breath. When I was 22, I was engaged to Richard Vanderbilt III, wealthiest family in Charleston. The wedding was planned, $15,000 dress, 300 guests. Then I met your father, William Hayes, Master Chief, making $45,000 a year, nothing but honor and a uniform. I loved him, and I destroyed my engagement 2 weeks before the wedding. My family disowned me, no money, no contact, nothing. I lived in military housing, shopped at thrift stores, counted every penny. My wealthy friends vanished. I thought, it's fine, I have love, I have family. Her voice cracked. But after 10, 20 years, I looked around and saw no mansion, no servants, no European vacations, and I wondered if I'd made the wrong choice. I began to understand. When you chose the academy, I saw history repeating. You were giving up other opportunities, Harvard, marriage prospects, to serve. I thought, she's going to regret it like I did. But you never regretted it, did you? I shook my head. Not for a second. I love what I do, Mom. Every day. She started crying. That's what I couldn't understand. I thought if I didn't acknowledge your success, it wouldn't be real. If I called you a failure, my choice wouldn't seem so bad. But then Marcus saluted you. Then the Navy Times wrote about you. Then your grandmother left you everything. And I had to face the truth. You're not a failure. I'm the one who refused to see who you really are. She looked at me directly. Catherine, I'm sorry. Deeply sorry. Not just for the party. For 29 years. I can't get that time back. Can't attend the ceremonies I missed. Can't read the emails I ignored. But I can start now. I can see you. Really see you. I considered her words carefully. Mom, I appreciate the apology. I do. But I need you to understand something. I can't go back to how things were. I'm 47. I don't have the energy to keep proving myself to the person who gave birth to me. If we rebuild this relationship, it has to be new. With boundaries, with respect, with truth. No more backhanded comments. Handed. No comparing me to Vanessa. No diminishing my career. If you can't do that, I'd rather have distance. Mom nodded, tears streaming. I understand. I'll do it. I promise. I'll do it. Then we'll try. Slowly, carefully, one day at a time. She stepped forward, hesitant, and I let her hug me. It was brief, awkward, but genuine. When we walked back downstairs, Dad caught my eye from across the room. He nodded once, understanding and approval in a single gesture. The next day, we flew back to Florida for Vanessa's wedding. The timing was surreal. Funeral one day, wedding the next. But life doesn't wait for grief to finish. The ceremony was at a beachfront church in Naples. I sat in the third row, not too close, not too far. I wore my dress whites, but only minimal ribbons. Enough to be respectful, not enough to overshadow. When Vanessa walked down the aisle with Dad, she caught my eye. And for the first time in years, her smile reached her eyes. She mouthed, "Thank you for coming. Thank you." At the reception, Marcus approached me, formal but warmer than before. "Admiral Hayes, thank you for being here. It means more to Vanessa and me than you know." "Congratulations, Captain. Take care of my sister." "I will, ma'am. And if I may, I want to apologize again for the engagement party. There's no excuse. You've apologized, Captain. I've accepted. Now go enjoy your wedding." Vanessa found me later, taking my hand. "Catherine, I need to say this. For years, I thought I was the successful one. I had the salon, the marriages, even though they failed. The life Mom wanted. But you built something real. You save lives. You lead thousands of people. You serve your country. And I called you a failure. I'm sorry, Catherine. I'm so, so sorry." "I appreciate that, Vanessa, really. Can we start over? Not like before, but as two adults who respect each other?" I considered it carefully, then nodded. "You'll need to learn about my world. And I'll need to learn about yours. Both require effort. I'll try, I promise. Then we'll try." 6 months later, the notification came through official channels. Promotion to Vice Admiral, '09, Deputy Commander, Pacific Fleet. 3 stars, one of the highest-ranking women in the United States Navy. Jules found me staring at the letter. "Ma'am, are you okay?" "I made Vice Admiral." She grabbed the paper, read it, let out a whoop that was decidedly unmilitary. "Holy, ma'am, congratulations." "Thank you. You don't seem excited." "I'm processing." The truth was more complicated. I was excited, honored, proud. But I was also thinking about all the people who hadn't believed I'd get here. All the times I'd been underestimated or dismissed. And now I was one of the most senior officers in the United States Navy. The promotion ceremony was scheduled for 3 months out. Large, formal, attended by senior leadership from across the service. I could invite guests. I thought carefully about who I wanted there. Dad, obviously. Jules. Several mentees who'd become friends. Officers who'd served under my command and taught me as much as I'd taught them. And Mom and Vanessa. Because despite everything, they were family. and this moment was big enough to share. I called Dad first. "I'm getting promoted to Vice Admiral." Silence. Then, "Katie girl, 3 stars." I heard him take a shaky breath. "Your mother needs to hear this. Hold on." "Dad, I can call her." But he was already calling for her. I heard their muffled conversation. Then Mom's voice. "Catherine? Hi, Mom. Your father says you're getting promoted. Vice Admiral in 3 months." Another silence. Then quietly, "I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know. Can we come to the ceremony? I'd like that." After we hung up, I sat in my office and let myself feel it. Really feel it. Not just the accomplishment. That was professional satisfaction. But the personal victory. I'd done it. Not for them, but despite them. And now they were finally here to witness it. 2 weeks before the ceremony, I flew to Oregon to see the house. My house now. The Cannon Beach Villa sat on a cliff overlooking the Pacific. 5 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows. A deck that wrapped around 3 sides. The place where my grandparents had spent their last years together, finding peace after 35 years of service. Now, it belonged to me. I stood on that deck, watching waves crash against the rocks below, and thought about the 18-year-old girl who'd walked into the Naval Academy in 1995. She'd spent 29 years desperate for her family to see her. But the 47-year-old woman standing here, with 3 stars about to go on her collar, $4.7 million in the bank, and an ocean view house that proved someone had always seen her, didn't need that validation anymore. Because she'd finally learned what her grandmother had always known. Silence isn't absence. Silence is choice. Silence is power dressed in patience. And she'd chosen dignity over desperation. Her family was learning to see her now, slowly, imperfectly, but truly. And if they didn't, she'd still be okay, because she had the family she'd chosen, 4,000 sailors who trusted her, dozens of officers she'd mentored, colleagues who respected her. And she had a legacy. Not just money, but the lesson grandmother left. Value isn't measured by salons or weddings. It's measured by service, sacrifice, and commitment to something bigger than yourself. My phone buzzed. Text from Elena Rodriguez. "Ma'am, I just got selected for the Naval War College program. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." I smiled and typed back, "You earned every bit of it, Elena. Never forget that." Standing there on the deck, I understood something profound. I couldn't fix the 29 years my family had ignored me, but I could make sure the next generation of young women never doubted their worth the way I had. And that legacy, that purpose, was worth more than any inheritance. The waves kept crashing, the wind carried salt spray, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely, utterly at peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because I'd finally stopped fighting for space in places that should have welcomed me from the start. And in that surrender, I'd found something better. I'd found myself. The promotion ceremony was scheduled for mid-December at Naval Base San Diego, 3 months away, time enough to transition into my new role, to prepare for the responsibility that came with 3 stars. But first, life kept moving forward in ways I hadn't anticipated. 2 weeks after returning from Oregon, Elena Rodriguez called with news that made me smile despite the mountain of briefing materials on my desk. "Ma'am, I'm getting married, Lieutenant Commander James Park. He's a submarine warfare officer. We met at a joint training exercise last year." "That's wonderful, Elena. Congratulations." The wedding's in early November, before his next deployment. It's small, just family and close friends. But I wanted to ask if you'd be willing to sign our marriage certificate as an official witness. I felt the weight of that request. Not just the formality, but what it represented. Trust, respect, the kind of relationship that mattered beyond rank. I'd be honored. The ceremony took place at the base chapel on a crisp Saturday morning. Maybe 50 guests filled the pews. Elena wore her service dress whites, James wore his. They'd chosen to make this a military wedding in every sense. I sat in the 3rd row with other officers who'd mentored Elena through her early career. Watched her recite vows with the same precision she brought to logistics planning. saw James look at her like she'd hung the stars. Afterward, at the small reception in the officers' club, Elena's mother approached me. Maria Rodriguez, a woman in her late 50s with kind eyes and hands that showed years of farm work. Admiral Hayes, I wanted to thank you. Elena wouldn't be standing here today, this confident, this sure of herself, without your guidance. She did the work, Mrs. Rodriguez. I just believed in her. That belief mattered more than you know. She paused, choosing words carefully. I'm ashamed to say I didn't support her joining the Navy. I thought it was too dangerous, too hard for a woman. I wanted her safe, married to a nice boy from our community, teaching elementary school like her cousins. But watching her today, seeing who she's become, I realized I was trying to make her small to keep her safe, when what she needed was permission to be large. Those words hit me somewhere deep. How many of us had been made small by people who claimed to love us? How many had needed permission we should have been given freely? You gave her that permission, Mrs. Rodriguez continued. And I'm grateful. Elena joined us, radiant despite the simple venue and modest reception. Ma'am, thank you for being here. It means everything. Wouldn't miss it, Lieutenant Commander. I used her new rank deliberately. She'd been promoted 2 weeks earlier, ahead of schedule. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you ever regret it? Choosing career over marriage and family? I considered the question. Not the first time I'd heard it. Wouldn't be the last. I didn't choose career over family, Elena. I chose to build a different kind of family. The sailors I've mentored, the officers I've served with, the mission that connects us all. That is family. And as for marriage, some people need that to feel complete. I never did. I found completeness in purpose. That's what I told my mom, Elena said quietly. That this, she gestured at James, at the Navy friends surrounding them, at the life they were building. This is my family. And she finally understands. Good. Hold on to that understanding. You'll need it when people try to make you smaller to make themselves comfortable. She hugged me, whispered against my shoulder. Thank you for showing me it was possible. Driving back to my quarters that evening, I thought about the different versions of family I'd encountered. The one you're born into, the one you choose, the one that chooses you back. All valid, all necessary in their own way. 3 weeks later, my phone rang while I was reviewing readiness reports. Vanessa's name on the screen. Catherine, I have news! Her voice carried an excitement I hadn't heard in years. What's going on? I'm pregnant. Marcus and I just found out. We're going to have a baby. The joy in her voice was infectious. That's wonderful. Congratulations to both of you. I know Mom's going to absolutely lose her mind. She's wanted grandchildren forever, but I wanted to tell you first. That caught me off guard. Why me first? Because I need to know something, and I need an honest answer. I waited. Will you be in this baby's life? Really in it? Not just sending money when we need it, but actually present? Involved? The question carried layers of meaning, an acknowledgement of how our relationship had been, a hope for how it could be different. Yes, if you want me to be? I do. Her voice cracked slightly. I want my child to know their aunt, the vice admiral who serves her country with honor. I want them to understand there are different ways to build a meaningful life, different ways to be successful. She paused, gathering courage. And I want to be better than we were to you. I want to actually show up, the way you always showed up for us, even when we didn't deserve it. I pulled over to the side of the road. This conversation deserved my full attention. Vanessa, that means more than you know. I'm serious, Catherine. Marcus's deployment taught me what your life has been like for 3 decades. The not knowing, the waiting, the constant anxiety. And I've only experienced it for 6 months. You lived it for years at a time. I managed. You did more than manage. You excelled while carrying a burden most people can't imagine. And we mocked you for it. I heard her crying now. I want to do better. Will you help me? Will you teach me how to be better? Yes, I'll help. After we hung up, I sat in my car watching Norfolk traffic flow past. This was what rebuilding looked like. Not perfect, not erasing the past, but choosing differently for the future. Vanessa wasn't asking for forgiveness exactly. She was asking for a chance to build something new. and I could honor that. The baby was due in June. Mom started planning immediately. Nursery colors, baby shower themes, discussing grandparent names with an enthusiasm that was both endearing and slightly overwhelming. She called me twice a week with updates, asking my opinion on things I knew nothing about but appreciated being consulted on. "What do you think about Margaret for a girl's name?" she asked during one call. "After your grandmother?" My throat tightened. I think Grandma would be deeply honored. Vanessa suggested it. She said she wants to honor the woman who saw what our family couldn't. Mom's voice grew quiet. "Catherine, I know I can't undo the past, but I want you to know I'm trying to be different. Every single day, I'm trying. I see that, Mom." I really do. "I've been going to therapy. Did Vanessa tell you?" She mentioned it. "The therapist helped me understand something. I was angry at myself for choosing your father, for giving up my family's money, for never feeling like I belonged in either world. And I took that anger out on you because you were happy. You chose this life with joy, not resentment." She paused. "And that made me furious, because if you could be happy serving, it meant I could have been too. It meant my bitterness was a choice, not a circumstance, and I couldn't face that." I'd heard this confession at the Portland house, but hearing it again told me something important. Mom was working through this, processing it, not just saying words to appease me. Thank you for telling me that. I'm also going to the Navy Family Support Group at the base, learning what I refused to learn before, understanding what Marcus goes through, what you went through all those years. That's good, Mom. That's real effort. It's the least I can do. I wasted 29 years. I don't want to waste what's left. In late November, I flew to Oregon for a long weekend. The Cannon Beach house had been sitting empty since my last visit, but a local property management company kept it maintained. I needed the quiet, the solitude, the space to think before the promotion ceremony that would change everything. The weather was perfect. Clear skies, temperatures in the low 50s, tourists thinning out as winter approached. I walked the beach each morning, collected shells and sea glass, watched fog burn off as the sun climbed higher, sat on driftwood logs and read books I'd been meaning to finish for months. On the second evening, I built a fire in the stone fireplace and opened a bottle from grandfather's wine collection, a 2005 Napa Valley Cabernet he'd apparently been saving for something special. This felt special enough. I toasted the empty room to service, to sacrifice, to being seen. The wine was excellent, rich, complex, perfectly aged. I thought about the 18-year-old girl who'd walked into the Naval Academy in 1995, how desperately she'd wanted her family's approval, how hard she'd worked to earn recognition that should have been freely given. And I thought about the 47-year-old woman sitting in this house, about to pin on her third star, who'd finally stopped needing that approval. The journey between those two people had been long and difficult, but it had led here, to peace, to purpose, to understanding that some things can't be forced. My phone buzzed. Text from Jules. "Advanced copy of the ceremony program just arrived. Looks good. You ready for this?" I typed back. As ready as I'll ever be. Another text, this one from Dad. "Your mother and I arrived Thursday. Vanessa and Marcus are flying in Friday morning. We're all so proud, Katie." I smiled, saved that message. The next morning, I woke to fog rolling in from the ocean, thick enough to obscure everything beyond 50 feet. The foghorn from Haystack Rock sounded its low, mournful note at regular intervals. I made coffee in grandmother's kitchen, found sourdough bread in the freezer, sat on the deck wrapped in a blanket watching the world disappear into gray. There was something meditative about the fog, the way it reduced everything to essentials, the way it made you focus on what was immediately in front of you, rather than the distant horizon. My career had been like that in some ways. Each assignment, each deployment, each crisis had required complete focus on the present moment. No time to worry about family approval or societal expectations. Just the mission, the sailors, the decisions that needed to be made. And somehow, in focusing on each moment, I'd built something lasting. The fog began to lift around noon, revealing the ocean in stages. First the rocks below, then the near surf. Finally, the horizon line where gray water met gray sky. I spent the afternoon going through grandmother's photo albums one more time, not with sadness now, but with gratitude. She'd documented everything, kept every article, maintained proof that someone had been paying attention. In the back of one album, I found a letter I'd missed before, addressed to me in grandmother's handwriting, sealed in an envelope marked, "For Catherine," to be opened after I'm gone. My hands shook as I opened it. The letter was dated 6 months before she died. My dearest Catherine, if you're reading this, I've moved on to wherever retired sailors go when their watch ends. I hope it's somewhere with a good view of the ocean. I wanted you to know why I'm leaving you the house and the money. It's not because you need it. You've built a successful career and financial stability on your own. It's because you deserve to know that someone saw you, really saw you. I watched your mother struggle for decades with her choice to marry your father. She loved him, still does, but she resented giving up her family's wealth. That resentment poisoned how she saw you because you made the same kind of choice she did, choosing service over easier paths, but you did it with joy instead of bitterness. Your grandfather and I spent 35 years in the Navy. We understood sacrifice. We understood why you missed family events, why you couldn't always be there, why your work demanded everything from you. We were proud, so incredibly proud. This house represents our reward for that service. Now it's yours, your reward for choosing duty over comfort, for building something meaningful, for becoming the kind of officer your grandfather always hoped you'd be. Don't let anyone make you doubt your choices, Catherine. You chose correctly. You chose with integrity. And you've made a difference in ways your mother will never fully understand. Live well, serve well, and know that at least 2 people in this family always saw you clearly. With all my love, Grandma Margaret. I read it 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in my wallet, a reminder I could carry with me. That evening, I stood on the deck watching sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. The lighthouse beam from Cape Meares swept across the water at regular intervals, steady, reliable, constant. My phone rang. Admiral Whitmore. Catherine, I wanted to call before the ceremony. Make sure you're prepared for the attention this is going to bring. Sir? Navy Times is running a major profile on you next week. They interviewed about 20 people. Officers you've mentored, captains who served under you. Some of the hostages from Somalia. It's comprehensive and very positive. I didn't authorize that. I know. But the reporter did her homework. The piece focuses on your leadership philosophy, your commitment to mentorship, your operational record. It's exactly the kind of publicity the Navy wants. Shows we're promoting based on merit, that women can reach the highest levels. When does it run? Monday, before your ceremony. I wanted you prepared. After we hung up, I thought about what that article would mean. The public record, documented and archived. My family would see it, would understand, perhaps for the first time, the full scope of what I'd built. Part of me wanted that, wanted them to read it and realize what they'd missed. But a larger part had moved beyond needing their recognition. The article would exist whether they read it or not. My career would continue whether they understood it or not. I'd built something that mattered, and I knew it. That was enough. The ceremony took place on a Friday morning in mid-December at Naval Base San Diego. Clear skies, temperature hovering around 65 degrees, a light breeze carrying the smell of salt water. The venue was Hangar 3, transformed with flags representing every command in the Pacific Fleet. 500 people filled the folding chairs arranged in precise rows. Officers from across the theater, civilian leadership, my entire chain of command. Reporters from major military publications. And in the third row, left side, Dad in his Master Chief dress blues, still fitting him perfectly. Mom in a navy dress, her face composed but her eyes bright. Vanessa and Marcus beside them, both in service dress uniforms. I stood backstage with Jules, who was fussing with my collar. You're nervous. I don't get nervous. You're doing something that looks remarkably like nervous. I took a breath. This ceremony marked 30 years of choices. Every sacrifice, every missed holiday, every time I'd chosen duty over comfort. And for the first time, my entire family would witness what that looked like. The ceremony followed traditional protocol, opening remarks by Admiral James Whitmore, the Pacific Fleet commander. Vice Admiral Catherine Hayes represents the finest qualities of naval leadership. Her operational record speaks for itself, from the Strait of Hormuz passage that became required study at Coronado, to the Somalia hostage rescue that saved 47 lives without firing a shot. He paused, letting that sink in. But what sets Admiral Hayes apart isn't just tactical brilliance, it's her commitment to developing the next generation. Under her mentorship, over 200 junior officers have advanced to positions of significant responsibility. That's the mark of a leader who understands legacy isn't built alone. I stood at attention as he read the formal citation, my mind drifting to all the faces who'd helped me reach this point. The captains who'd taken chances on a young lieutenant, the mentors who'd challenged me, the sailors who'd trusted me with their lives. Dad came forward for the pinning. His hands trembled, not from age but from emotion, as he attached the third star to my shoulder board. The weight of it was barely noticeable physically, but immense symbolically. When he stepped back and saluted, I returned it crisply. Then, because protocol allowed it, I pulled him into an embrace. He whispered, "Your grandfather would be so damn proud, Katie. So am I. Always have been." "I know, Dad. I've always known." Admiral Whitmore concluded with remarks about my new role as Deputy Commander Pacific Fleet, the operational scope, the strategic importance, the responsibility being placed in my hands, then reception, handshakes that blurred together, congratulations from people I'd served with, competed against, learned from. Mom approached slowly, uncertain. "Catherine, this is extraordinary." I had no idea what all this meant. She gestured at this hangar, the flags, the uniformed officers standing at attention, the formality of it all. Most people don't. That's okay. It's not okay. I should have known, should have asked, should have been here for every one of these moments. Her voice broke. But I'm here now, learning, trying to understand. That's all I can ask, Mom. Vanessa hugged me tightly, her pregnancy just beginning to show. My sister, the Vice Admiral, little Margaret's going to grow up knowing her aunt is literally one of the most powerful women in the military. That sounds more impressive than it is. Don't. Vanessa pulled back, looked me in the eye. Don't diminish this. You earned every bit of it. And I'm going to make sure my daughter knows that. Marcus stood beside her, rendered a perfect salute before shaking my hand. "Ma'am, it's an honor to witness this, and I'll never stop apologizing for that engagement party." "You've apologized enough, Captain. Now go take care of my sister and my niece." "Yes, ma'am." Throughout the reception, I found myself watching the crowd. Sailors I'd mentored standing tall in their uniforms. Officers I'd trained with, now commanding their own ships. Leaders who'd shaped my career, now watching me step into this role. This was family too, chosen, earned, built through shared purpose. Elena Rodriguez found me near the end, now wearing Lieutenant Commander's insignia. "Ma'am, watching this ceremony, seeing you here, it makes everything feel possible." "It is possible, Elena, for anyone willing to do the work." My parents read the Navy Times article. My father called to apologize for not understanding sooner. My mother framed it. She smiled. But you know what? I realized I didn't need them to understand anymore. I was already proud of myself. That's the real achievement, Lieutenant Commander. Hold on to it. After the official ceremony ended and the crowd began to thin, I stepped outside onto the tarmac. A C-130 was conducting touch-and-go drills in the distance, the sound of its engines a familiar comfort. Dad joined me, both of us watching the aircraft in companionable silence. "You okay, Katie girl?" "Yeah, just processing." 3 stars, Deputy Commander of Pacific Fleet. Your grandfather served 35 years and made it to 05. You're 09 at 47. Different era, different opportunities. Don't do that. Don't minimize it. His voice was firm. You earned this through excellence, not opportunity. Own it. I smiled. Yes, Dad. We stood there as the December sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Your mother really is trying, he said quietly. I know it doesn't erase 29 years, but she's doing the work. Therapy, support groups, actually showing up. I know, I see it. Can you forgive her? I considered the question carefully. Forgiveness isn't a single moment, Dad. It's a series of choices, made repeatedly until the pattern shifts. I'm choosing to try, to build something new, but it'll take time. That's fair. More than fair, actually. He put his arm around my shoulders. I'm sorry I didn't stand up to her sooner. Should have insisted she come to your promotions, made her see what she was missing. You came to everything, Dad. You forwarded every email to Grandma. You were there. That mattered. But you needed both parents. I had you, and I had Grandma, even if I didn't fully realize it until now. That was enough. The C-130 made another pass. Lower this time. Its landing gear down. What's next for you, Katie? What happens when you pin on that third star on Monday? I report to Pacific Fleet headquarters in Hawaii next month. Transition into the deputy role. Learn the strategic side of operations, the part that determines where entire battle groups go, how we allocate resources across the theater. Sounds like a lot of responsibility. It is, but it's what I've been preparing for my entire career. He squeezed my shoulder. Then you're ready. That evening, the family gathered for dinner at a restaurant overlooking the harbor. Just the five of us: Dad, Mom, Vanessa, Marcus, and me. It felt strange and wonderful at the same time, normal in a way we'd never been. Mom raised her glass. To Catherine, we're so incredibly proud of you. Everyone drank to that. Then Vanessa added, and to new beginnings, to being the family we should have been all along. As glasses clinked and conversation flowed, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, that would take longer, but acceptance, willingness to try. These were my people, flawed and late to understanding, but trying now. And I had others too, the sailors, the mentees, the chosen family who'd never needed convincing. Together, they made up something whole, not perfect, but real. And that was more than enough. 2 weeks later, I returned to Cannon Beach for a final visit before reporting to Hawaii. The house stood exactly as I'd left it, patient and unchanging. I spent 3 days there, walking the beach at dawn, reading by the fire, sitting on the deck watching storms roll in from the Pacific. On the last evening, I stood at the railing as fog began to settle over the water. The lighthouse beam from Cape Meares cut through it, steady, reliable, marking the way home. I thought about Grandmother's letter, about her understanding of sacrifice and service, about the legacy she'd passed down not just in money and property, but in permission to exist exactly as I was. Value isn't measured by salons or weddings, she'd taught me. It's measured by service, sacrifice, and commitment to something larger than yourself. I'd spent 3 decades learning that lesson. Now I'd spend the rest of my life living it, teaching it to the next generation of officers who needed to hear it, showing Vanessa's daughter that there were many ways to build a meaningful life, proving that family, whether born into or chosen, only works when it's built on truth and mutual respect. The fog thickened, erasing the horizon, but the lighthouse kept turning, its beam cutting through the gray with unwavering certainty, just like Grandmother had done for me, just like I would do for those who came after. I didn't need applause, just respect. And now, finally, I had both. The family I was born into had learned to see me. The family I'd chosen had never stopped. The legacy I'd inherited proved someone had been watching all along. And the purpose I served gave meaning to every choice I'd made. I stood there, Vice Admiral Catherine Hayes, 47 years old, 3 stars on my collar, a villa on the Oregon coast, and a life built entirely on my own terms, completely at peace, not because everything was perfect, but because I'd finally stopped fighting for space I deserved from the beginning. And in that surrender, I'd found something better than validation. I'd found myself, whole, complete, exactly enough. The lighthouse beam swept past one more time, steady and sure, marking the way forward. That was the real inheritance, not money or property, but understanding that some lights never stop shining, even when fog obscures the view. You just have to trust they're there and keep moving forward.